Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's a pleasure having you here. I know it's been around 2 weeks since we last uploaded on YouTube, and I just wanted to take a minute just to speak to you in relation to it. So I normally upload on a Saturday, and this particular build has been quite precious to me over the last couple of weeks. And the reason why I've not uploaded is due to the fact that I was really ill. I actually caught is probably not the right way to describe it. I actually woke up last Saturday in extreme pain, really bad pain. And it was found after I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance that I'd actually got a few kidney stones. Don't know why, don't know how, etc. But I had to undertake not so nice minor operation to put that right, and followed by a couple of drips in one arm and drips in the other arm and morphine here and there. So it kind of knocked me off my feet for around 3 or 4 days. Good news is we're all back to normal now. I've been waiting for a number of different parts to be delivered, and whilst we're 90% of the way there, we are still missing a few items. So I just want to welcome you all to the first PC build on this channel. It's actually going to be for my personal rig that's going to sit on that shelf just above there. So taking a couple of minutes just to go through the parts selection and why we've actually purchased them. I just wanted to explain the reasons why and why I've gone for each particular product, really. So I'm not going to go into a detailed review of each one, but just my personal opinion and why I've chosen them. So basically, where to start? We briefly touched on the case on the last video, and I can't tell you how excited I am to actually build in this case. And like we said previously, the O11 Dynamic XL version in white with a few black accents. It is primarily a water cooling case, primarily because of the lack of air intake with the 2 glass side panels. But that being said, it does offer really good airflow. Gamers Nexus did quite a few detailed analysis, well, went into a lot of detailed analysis in relation to this particular case, and did find that with the correct orientations of fans and the right amount of fans, that it could give adequate airflow. So we opted for this particular case. I love the aesthetics of it, and to be quite honest with you, it hides a lot of the cables. It's got a shroud at the back where you can obviously hide your PSU. And for me, I think that it looks absolutely stunning. So we opted for this particular case, and I'm really excited to have a build in this particular one as well. So following on from that, to cool the CPU, we've actually gone with a new 360mm AIO, shall we say. It's from Corsair. It's the Capellix. I've actually had to import this from the US because it doesn't release here in the UK until the 27th of November. And even then it's on a pre-order. So this particular one comes with, I think it's like a Commander Pro, but it only has 6 connections inside. So I have got a Commander Pro, and it's on its way. It's going to be delivered tomorrow. So we're going to try and build this with 10 fans in total, utilizing this particular, I think it's a Commander Core that's in here. Don't hold me to that, but I do know that it comes with, let's have a quick look. Yeah, Commander Core involved already in here. So it may only support 6 fans. Now 3 being on the cooler itself. Now I have also got some splitters. I've got 4 splitters. So if I can utilize this and not have another Commander Pro involved, because any RGB orientation with fans, especially with the number of fans that we're going to be putting in here, comes with a load of cables. And I mean a load of cables. I'll touch on the fans in a minute, but each one of these has a PWM header and an RGB header. And basically you've got to got to get them all together, somehow hide them all behind the motherboard tray and make sure that the side can close at the same time. So that's going to bring its own challenges. So I'm really excited to use this. I love it due to the fact that it's all RGB. It's got high airflow fans on it, so it comes with magnet levitating fans, ML120s with this particular one. I'm going to see how that all syncs up with the QL120s, because I bought 7 additional QL120 fans here as well. And these QL120s all come with, especially in the packs of 3, this particular one, come with the lighting no core as well. So hopefully we will only need 2 of those. We'll be able to use the commander core that comes with this 360 AIO, and we won't need the Commander Pro, and we can keep it all in check. So storage is a big one. So in actual fact, we've had the little drive delivered today. So this one is a Gen 4 NVMe drive. It's got some of the fastest read and write speeds there is on the market today. I've also opted for a 2 terabyte Gen 4 drive as well. So we're going to make use of all those PCIe 4 lanes, which is going to hopefully, when we are utilizing it for data transfer and rendering and things like that, it's going to increase those or decrease those times and increase the speeds. I have also got a 2 terabyte 850 Evo SSD, which is here out of a previous build. It's got it's got a lot of Steam library on there and stuff like that. So I wanted to keep that and just utilize it as a secondary drive, if you like. And then finishing off with a 2 terabyte Barracuda Seagate, just standard hard drive, mainly for just storage, really. It's not going to be for any video rendering or anything that's going to involve any high speed transfers or anything like that. It's mainly just going to be there for pictures and old videos, if you like. So moving on to, I'll come to this one in a second. Moving on to the PSU. So the PSU, I've opted for a Seasonic. This is it's the GX850. Really, really well branded PSU, to be honest. Seasonic is really well known. They come with 10-year warranties. So this one's 80 plus gold certified as well. And I like this one because of the flat cables. Now, to be quite honest with you, I'm a little bit disappointed because one of the things that we are missing is the extension cables. So we are going to have to build this utilizing these cables here. And I wasn't 100% on how it looked when I tested out everything just to make sure everything was working. So I'm so glad that I've gone for the cable extensions from Cable Mod. That being said, they must be in high demand at this moment in time because the delivery on them has been 2 weeks already and they're still not here. I've chased them up via email again today. I've not had a response as of yet. So I'm going to go ahead and build without them. But just so you're aware, we've actually ordered some custom extension cables in red and black. I also ordered an additional 8-pin PCIe cable as well, runs straight from the back of the PSU for when our NVIDIA graphics card gets delivered as well. So fantastic power supply, really love Seasonic, and like I said, backed by that 10-year guarantee, thumbs up from me. It used to be the creme de la creme, and it's now been surpassed by the 3080s and 3090s, NVIDIA's latest releases. Even though the 3080s have had a decrease by 1 GB in RAM, that being GDDR6X and this being 11 gigs of GDDR6, it kind of makes up for it. So you don't really notice the 1 gig difference. I have got an order, a 3080 Strix OC edition. I was in the queue on scan and overclockers, and I did have it in my basket, but like many of you out there, I wasn't able to get my fingers on it. I've already spoke about it in a previous video, but utter disappointment. There's a lack of availability at the minute. The demand is huge for these cards. Just 2 days ago, or yesterday, shall we say, there was the AMD release, and that went horrendous as well. So leave down below, guys, if you have got a 3080 or a 3070 or a 3090. I'm not knocking on any of the cards whatsoever. I just had my heart set on this Strix 3080 version, and it's just nowhere to be seen. The only way you can get them is if you pay the extortionate prices of these scalpers, whether it be on Facebook Marketplace or whether it be on eBay, and I'm just not doing it. I'm sitting in a queue, which I don't condone either, but if I don't, then we're never going to see, well, it's never going to see the light of day, because there's just thousands upon thousands of people that actually want them. So not the card that I actually want to put in this build, but it will definitely serve the purpose. And I know, guys, there's hundreds, if not thousands of people out there that would absolutely love to have a 2080 Ti. So I'm not taking it for granted by any stretch of the imagination, but I just wanted to let you know that the 3080 is one of the things that I'm still waiting for, and the extensions from Cable Mod is the other thing that we're waiting for as well. So I'll just put that to one side for a second. So moving on to the motherboard, I opted for the X570, and we've gone with AMD as a chipset. This is the Gaming E version. It's absolutely amazing board, guys. I've had the Z270E, I've had the Z370E, I've had the Z490E, and a lot of people may be asking, well, why didn't I go for the Corsair? And the reason why is because there was an £80 difference in cost, and it was out of stock. You just can't get it. I just could not get it at the time of ordering this particular board. And not only that, but one of the main reasons was that the CPU that I've actually got in here came as a bundle with this particular motherboard as well. So I absolutely love, like I said already, Asus motherboards, and this was like the icing on the cake for me, because I was so disappointed, like many of you, that I couldn't even get a 5900X or a 5950X on launch as well. And I feel like I've been one of the most unfortunate people out there, not been able to get any of the new CPUs, the new GPUs, etc., etc. So I was so lucky that I was watching a YouTube video of an Australian guy, Tech Yes City, Brian. Absolutely love his content. Check him out. I'll leave a link in the description below. He's so good, guys. I actually left the link in one of his videos. I clicked on it, and it was for an Amazon link. And it was for a company that was based about an hour and a half away in Stoke-on-Trent, and they were doing they were doing their X570F boards and the E boards coupled with the 5900X or the 5950X, and I managed to snag a 5950X with a Gaming E X570 board, which I was over the moon for. Now, I did pay, I think it was about £50 more than what you would do if you bought them two separately. They also put the CPU in the socket, they upgraded the BIOS, and they also installed this. It's not bad. It does work. I did do a couple of tests, and it's not adequate. I found it went up to around 86 degrees. It may be for 6 core or 8 cores or something like that, but anything where you're going to be introducing extra voltage or you're wanting to obviously overclock, it's not going to be adequate. So I was really concerned, guys, because when it was delivered, the motherboard box was already 3/4 open with the CPU cooler already installed on top of the CPU. It had adequate compound that was already on it. That wasn't the issue, and everything turned on and no issues or anything like that. All I would say to you is, if you are planning on overclocking, this seriously stopped any performance that you're going to get from the CPU. I didn't see the boost clocks go above 3.6, and the Cinebench scores in R15 and R20 were not great, okay? And it's purely limited to this cooler. Okay, so if you are going to be getting 5800 or 5900 or a 5950X, make sure that you're putting adequate cooling on top of the CPU, because if not, you're leaving performance on the table. Okay. Last but not least, guys, I've opted for some Trident Z 32 meg or 32 gig kit. This is basically a RAM kit that I've wanted as well for quite a long time. I've always been primarily utilizing Corsair's RAM sticks, and unfortunately for me this time they again weren't in stock, but I actually thought to myself it might be a blessing in disguise, because this actual kit is lightning fast. It's a C16 3600 megahertz kit. It's Samsung B die. It is expensive, okay? Comparable to, let's say, Corsair LPX, it's a lot more expensive, but you're getting, in my opinion, a better quality of product. The only downside to it is that it's not going to be able to be controlled through iQOO with Corsair. So that's not a big deal though, because in all honesty, when we've got our GPU, our motherboard and our RAM all going to be controlled by Asus and their software, and we're going to have the fans and the cooler all controlled by iQOO. So at least we've not got 4 or 5 different levels of software. So that's it, guys. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of why I've purchased the particular parts and how I've actually got them. I will leave links in the description below. Majority of all these items here were purchased from Amazon, and I'll leave my links down there below. So if you do feel like you want to obviously pick up any of these pieces, then feel free to click on the link below. I do get a very small kickback from Amazon. It doesn't cost you guys anymore, and if you do click the links, it would be greatly appreciated. So thank you. So I'm going to crack on. I'm going to get this build put together, and hopefully you guys enjoy. Thank you. So guys, let's say that all your parts have been delivered and you're really excited, and you lay all your parts out on the table and you think, right, okay, where do I start? So step one that I always find the easiest is to basically ready everything that you can on the motherboard. Okay, so that starts with the CPU. It then moves on to the RAM, and then it moves on to any onboard storage devices such as M.2s or NVMe's. Okay, then step 3 is kind of up to you really. I primarily like to put the back plate on for the CPU cooler, and I like to make sure that everything is in place. Depending on which case, smaller cases such as ITX cases or mini ITX cases and stuff like that, I think it's always easier to install the AIO or the cooler outside of the case and then install the motherboard into the case after. Now, in this particular scenario, because this is a huge case, okay, we're going to have plenty of room to get hands in there, head in there, and everything else in there that we need to, not only to see what we're doing, but to obviously not cause any damage to any of the parts with the screwdrivers or anything like that. So for me, on this particular occasion, what we're going to do is CPU's in there at the minute, but I'm going to take it out and just primarily show you how to install that. We're then going to move on to the RAM, and then we're going to install both NVMe drives, so the board is all ready and rocking to go. So let's move on to stage 1. So I'll take this one out. So first things first, guys, obviously I bought a CPU and motherboard combo. So I don't know whether you'll be able to see that, whether it focuses or not, but let's see if I can put it up there. That's a 5950X, the latest AMD release. So very, very straightforward, really. Okay. All that we're going to do is we're going to tally up the little triangle at the bottom of the CPU in one of the corners with the other triangle on the motherboard. Okay. So all we have to do is triangle and make sure that when you're putting it in, there's no force necessary or anything like that. It should just slot in, okay? I always like to just give it a little wiggle just to make sure that it's in there, and that's it, okay? What you should be able to do then is this particular CPU lever here, you should be able to just fold it down and clip into place. And that's CPU installed, all right? So step 2, guys, RAM installation, okay? Now, it's primarily exactly the same with every different type of RAM, whether it's non-RGB or RGB RAM, very, very straightforward. It only goes in one way, and there is a little force necessary in order to get it in for the first time, okay? And there's a few jokes in that, but I'll leave that to your imagination. But I just wanted to show you, obviously, how to put it in to the RAM slots and make sure that you're not going to cause any damage to the CPU, to the motherboard or to the RAM itself, okay? So like we said before, I bought a 32 gig kit, and obviously this comes with 4 sticks of RAM, okay? So on this particular install, we're going to populate all 4 RAM slots, okay? If I can get into it. There we go. Comes with a nice little Gskill sticker there, which we'll never use. Oh, there we go. Right. So, primarily, guys, don't touch the PCB at the bottom. And as you'll see, there's a little slot or groove here. Now, the slot is further this side than it is this side, okay? So I'm going to be doing this upside down. So all you have to do is line up these 2 slots here and make sure that the groove in the motherboard lines up with the groove on the RAM slot, okay? Make sure that when you're putting it in, it's much easier to put one side in first, and once you've got one side in, then just slightly press down to make sure that it's seated correctly. And what you're going to have to do is basically put a little force on both sides until you hear a click. And what you'll do is once you've got that confirmation of click, you'll see that the little pull tag here on the side of the RAM slot will go up. In the instance, guys, that you're only using a 2-DIMM kit rather than a 4-DIMM kit, please make sure that you're using the correct RAM slots. And normally it's the second one in and the 4th slot as you're looking at the motherboard, okay? Each of the motherboard DIMMs are labeled A and B, and make sure that you've not got one in slot 3 and one in slot 2, because you will not be making the most of your RAM, okay? And if it comes up when you get through to post and it's only picking up either 8 gig, or if you've installed 32 but it's only picking up 16, then you'll know that you've got them either seated incorrectly or in the incorrect slots, all right? So I'm just going to go through and put these ones in now and make sure that we've got all 4 seated correctly. So, all 4 DIMM slots have been filled. They're all seated correctly. I've checked the little tabs at the back and they're all firmly in position and all the same height. So we've got 32 gigs of C16 all installed. We've got our CPU installed as well. So guys, onto our onboard storage. So in this particular build, we're going to be using these 2 Sabrent NVMe drives. One's a 500 and one's a 2 terabyte drive. The 500 gigabyte one we're going to use as our boot drive, and that's going to be installed on the top M.2 slot. And the second one, our 2 terabyte drive, which is primarily going to be for our video and basically YouTube stuff, we're going to put on the bottom drive. What we need to do is we need to remove these heat shields here by 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, And basically what we need to do is just take those off. We're going to install these drives in. We're going to peel back the tape that's on the back, and that will help them stick to these drives and basically just help with heat dissipation. And I'll talk you through that as we go. There's a further 2 screws underneath, so just be aware of that. Oh, they won't actually come out, which is good. And on the back, we just need to make sure after install we peel off this tape here, okay? And that's the same for both of the heat shields as well. So we'll start with our boot drive. Our boot drive is going to go into or populate into the top slot up here. We need to make sure that the standoffs are in the correct place for installation as well. So let's open this and we'll get it installed. Comes in a little nice storage case here, which is nice, and just opens up, and instruction manual at the top, and then our NVMe drive, I just want to be careful not to drop it onto the motherboard, is securely located inside, and that will be the same for both, okay? Again, try not to touch the back or the PCB. Obviously, any grease or moisture in your skin or anything like that could cause a short circuit, but just make sure that you're installing it without touching those key components, all right? So all we're going to literally do is we're just going to pop this into here, like that. And we need to make sure that the standoff is in the right place. So what we've done, guys, is we've just pushed our NVMe drive in. What we needed to do was we needed to find and make sure that the standoff bracket was in the right place. Now, this one hasn't got one pre-installed, so I've just looked in the motherboard tray and they supply you with them. I don't think you're going to be able to see that, but it comes with 2 standoffs and 2 very small screws. So what we're going to do now is just going to install those, take this nicely out, pop it on here, and we're just going to make sure that we put this in the correct place. Cool. Right, so NVMe drive, fold that back up there, like that, slot in nicely. This will then sit down nicely on the standoff. You take one of the smallest screws you've ever seen in your life, and just nicely screw it down. Doesn't need to be mega tight, guys, because like I said, the heat shield will also go over the top of it, okay? So next step is on the back of the heat shield, we need to remove this little piece of tape. Let's get rid of that. And then what we're going to do is we are going to put this back on in the right way. So that's number 1 done, guys. Moving on to number 2. I always like to keep these packages due to the fact that if you ever upgrade or anything like that, if anyone ever purchases anything off of you, it's always nice to have the original packaging that it came in. So I'll put that to one side. And the same for the RAM, I'll do the same with that as well. I'll put it away nicely. You can either use it as basically a nice little, if you like, showing off all your boxes, etc, etc. If not, it's always nice for the next person that buys it, number 1, to either post to them in so it's securely packaged, or second of all, a lot of people, you can add an extra few pounds here and there if you've got the original packaging as well. So let's get into this one. So this one here is the 2 terabyte version, guys, and again, exactly the same, just comes with a little user manual, and then the drive is located underneath. All right, so again, just be careful. Try not to touch the PCB or anything like that. It's amazing how small that these are and how fast they are as well. So 2TB version there, guys. What we'll do then, guys, is we'll put this one into slot 2. We need to think about the little standoff first as well. So I always like to offer it up first to make sure that we know which standoff we're applying. So it's this one here, which is quite handy. Again, these standoffs just screw straight in, guys. It's not difficult or anything like that. Finger tight is adequate. Again, put it in at an angle as well, and it just slots in. And then all you've got to do is just push it down onto the standoff and then apply the secondary screw on top. And it does help if you've got smaller fingers as well, because these things are tiny. We have it in. I found the hole. Again, what we're going to do, guys, just finger tight. There we go, no problems at all. Again, the heat shield, we need to remove this little film here. There we go. We'll chuck them in the bin afterwards. And then we're just going to put it back in place over the top of the drive. Line it up. All looks good. And just screw it back down. There we go. Right, let's put the fan shield back on. There we go. Right. Again, put these away nice and safe. So if you ever want to sell, you've got something nice and handy to post them in if you ever want to. Right, that's those. So next step for me, guys, is thinking, do I want to install the CPU cooler, AIO, or do we ready the case, i.e. take off the front panels, the side panels, the back panels, and we have a look at how easy the installation is going to be. So in order to get the back panel off, guys, there's just 2 thumb screws, which is here and here, okay? You need to take these 2 thumb screws out first in order to remove the top panel, and then both side panels will be able to be removed as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. And once the top panel is off, all we need to do is, with both fingers, just push up on the, hold the front and hold the back, and just push up on the back panel, like that, and they will also remove as well. We'll do the same with the front. I'll see if I can do it from this side. There we go. And what you see now, guys, is we've got a total open chassis. So we should be able to work in this case relatively easy. It's a fairly large case, not by any means any of the largest ones, but it is quite a large chassis. So if you are planning on getting this case, just beware. It's around 50 centimeters in length. If I can remember, it's something like 27 in width and 50 centimeters in length. I'll put the actual dimensions in. It should pop up somewhere on the top and give you an indication of what the actual dimensions are. But if you are planning on getting this case, make sure that you have got ample room for it to fit, because it is bigger than a lot of normal mid ITX cases, all right? But that being said, a lot of people get it due to the ease of building, and like I said, primarily for water cooling with regards to additional radiators and pumps, etc, etc. So what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm just going to go around the back. I'm going to untwizzle the cable ties which keep the front panel connectors, and we'll uncouple all those, and we'll just make sure that we've got everything. We'll take the drive bay off as well, which I'll just show you. Again, just with a very simple thumb screw, and it just picks up and slides out. So before I uncouple the front I/O panel, what I'm going to do is, you still can't see, but located in the back of here, there is all the little bits and bobs that we're going to require in terms of screws to actually put this together for the motherboard and for everything else. So in order to get this little parcel out here, we need to undo, first of all, this screw here, which is a bit fidgety, but there you go. So that little thumb screws come out. Then underneath, you can pull the little slot to the left, and then what you should be able to do is pull this drive out here to give us our little pack of goodies. We've also got a little RGB hub, which is situated right down there. I don't know whether you can see it. There it is. So I'll bring it up on a different camera just so you guys can see it. And that is what controls on the O11 Dynamic XL version, this RGB light on the front of the case. So it's great that it already comes with its own connections, which is down there. Obviously, that's going to be powered via SATA cable, and when we come to install our PSU, we'll get that all cabled up afterwards. Before we actually install the motherboard, one thing that I'd like to say is what we should be doing is we should be removing this little cable tray here. Number one, to give us more access, and number two, on the back of here, it might give us an adequate position to put our either commander cores or lighting nodes, and it will definitely hinder us doing some cable management. So apologies, guys, make sure that you remove this first. So once all four of these screws are removed, you should be able to just take this panel off here. And like I said, it offers a really good opportunity to put our lighting node cores or our commander pros or our commander cores on the back of here. Gets rid of the ugly cables, and not only that, make sure that this side of the case is adequately cable managed as well. So now that we've uncoupled all our cables, guys, and we've realised that, as I said, in this case, you've got two USB 3.0 ports down at the bottom. You've also got two USB ports at the top. So basically what we've got here in this bunch of cables here is we've got our USB 3 connection, which is here, okay? We've got our front panel connectors, i.e. HDD lights, power LED lights, and power and reset buttons, etc, etc. We have also got our HD audio, which is here. And then we've also got our USB-C connection, which is here as well, okay? Now, down the bottom, it's got a separate USB 3 connection as well, which on my motherboard, I've only got one header. So we're not going to be able to utilize those on this motherboard. So what I've done is I've just folded it up and put it down here, all right? Now, the second thing to note is this case actually fits two PSUs. Don't know why. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to remove this drive cage here because obviously, number one, it gets rid of a lot of wires out of the way because they come pre-wired with SATA cables already, and I'm just going to use the top one. So we'll take that out now. But what it does, guys, is it allows us to get rid of these unsightly wires, gives us a little bit more room to maneuver at the back of the cage as well. And if at any time you want to improve or increase the capacity of storage, I've already got a secondary drive here that I can utilize, or I can put this one back in, all right? Right then, guys. next step, before we install a motherboard into our case, onto the pre-installed standoffs, what we need to do is we need to install, or at least look at, how we intend on attaching the CPU cooler to the CPU. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get hold of the Capellix. We're going to take it out and we're just going to have a look at what fittings it comes with to see if we need to make any adjustments to the actual motherboard itself. All right, like this the back plate. All right. So what's in here? AMD, and Intel. Oh, nice little. Comes with a clear front for the CPU block or head. We'll have a look at that afterwards. Wow, there is a lot of screws in here. Right, okay. What's that one? That looks like an Allen key. Right, we'll put this one back. We want Am4, so it's got our Threadripper attachments there. It's got our Intel attachments there. And it's got our Am4 attachments just there. So these are the ones that we need, guys, for this CPU and motherboard, which is cool. Right, let's have a look. And there's our commander core, which is there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we should be all good. We may be able to get away with the included commander core with this box. Don't know yet. We'll have to have a look. So it comes with 3 ML120 fans. Really good fans. As I said before, it comes with an RGB and a PWM connection. And in order to power these in terms of fan curves and stuff like that, we need to make sure that they are correctly connected. All right. But again, really nice fans on these. They are RGB as well, but it really annoys me. Do you know when the manufacturer does not center the sticker and it looks like it's wobbling? I hate that. But hey ho. Right. Make sure you keep the cover on, guys. It comes pre-applied thermal paste on the bottom. And I don't know how good it is. I've never had a problem, but I just don't want it all over my desk. I'm probably going to remove it. And what we've got is got some MX4 here from Arctic, which I've used it for years and never had any problems. Always found it to be much better in terms of heat dissipation than a couple of other known brands. Just personal preference. They all generally do the same thing, but I prefer this one here. So guys, now that we've got everything out and laid out and we know where we're at, the first thing that you will notice is this particular Capellix cooler comes initially with an Intel bracket on, and what we need to do is we need to take that bracket off. So very carefully remove the plastic cover so you don't get thermal paste all over everywhere, and it should be very, very straightforward. So the Intel bracket comes like an X, and what we need to do is remove that. Oh, there we go. So just pull slightly on each side like that and put these to one side because you don't want to lose them. And then what we're wanting to do is install the Am4 socket brackets. Okay, so very straightforward. Just line them up at the sides and push them on evenly from both sides. Okay. And then what we can do is we can prepare the bracket so that we're not fiddling around putting it on afterwards. So if you go into the bag that came with the cooler, you should find the 2 finger or thumb screws that you can utilize to tighten down the bracket. So we're looking for these particular ones here, okay? And all that they do is they come with the 2 brackets, and you should be able to just screw these into here like that, okay? So all we're going to do, guys, is we're going to take our pump head. We're going to put one of the screws through the bottom like this, and we're going to take the other thumb screw, which is here, and we are literally just going to very slightly tighten it so it doesn't fall out, okay? If I can do it, there we go, right. And that's all we're going to do, okay? And we're going to repeat that for the other side, and then that will give us the adequate mechanism to be able to attach it to the CPU, okay? And when you're done, guys, you should have a couple of little brackets attached like that, thumb screws, and that will give you the right way up and allow us to connect to the CPU. All right. Right. So what we're going to do, guys, is I've oriented the radiator in which the position I think that I'm going to install it into the computer. And basically, what we're going to do is we're just going to basically do it. What we're going to do, guys, is we're going to attach the pump head to the CPU. Okay. Now it's going to be used obviously with these 2 little brackets, the Am4 brackets that we previously installed. So what I think the easiest way to do is I needed to understand how much room I had with regards to the cables, okay? And I also wanted to make sure that the pump head was facing the right way. I hate it when they're upside down or they're facing left and right. So what I've done is I've oriented the radiator to a position which I know it's going to be the correct way. And all we're going to simply do, if simply he says, we are going to hook one side on. If we don't knock everything off. There we go. And then we'll put our other side on from this side here. Right, once they're both attached, guys, don't over tighten one side. Screw one bit down, alternate to the other side, go to the other side, and then vice versa, okay? Tighten them with your thumbs first. What you will see is, if you're doing it correctly, you will start to see that, oh, 1 second. Stay. You will start to see the CPU block moving till it finds the center position. So don't go mental with it. Make sure that it's done slowly, okay? And this doesn't need to be mega tight either, all right? You see some people which are literally screwing it down with a screwdriver, and you're thinking, God almighty, stop. Right, that's more than enough, okay? So what we can do now is, I have the position of where the radiator is going to go and where the motherboard's going to go in there, obviously the case. On here, we've also got our pump head connections and our CPU fan connections as well. So we'll leave them disconnected for the minute. What we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on putting the fans onto this radiator here, okay? Let's just put that there. Nice. So in this particular case, what we're going to do is we're going to be pulling cool air from the outside of the case and pulling warmer air into the case. Now, what my theory is, and I know that Steve at Gamers Nexus has done some tests on this and proved that obviously there is different ways of doing it. For me, I personally want to show off the RGB as much as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 3 intake on the radiator pulling the cool air from outside. I'm going to have 3 more intake on the bottom of the case down here, and I'm going to have 3 which are going out at the top of the case and 1 at the back of the case. So should create basically positive pressure, i.e. more air coming in than what's going out. All right, so we're going to have 6 intake and we're going to have 4 which are pushing air out of the case. All right, so guys, with regards to the fans, please make sure that you get them the right way. Okay, there's nothing worse of thinking that you're having 3 intake fans when in actual fact you're extracting air and you're not getting the adequate cooling that you actually require for the CPU. So make sure that if you're wanting to pull air in to the radiator, okay, that you're following, you'll never be able to see it, but on these fans there is arrows. Okay, ideally if you want air to come in, you point the fan this way that I'm facing it now, and when this fan spins, it's going to push air towards me. And likewise, if I want the air going the other way, you turn the fan around and you put it the other way. All right. So just make sure that you've got the fans correctly orientated when you're installing them. All right. So we'll put these in now, guys. Make sure that they're the right way. So when installing the fans, guys, make sure that you're using the correct screws that accompany the cooler itself. Obviously, in our case, what we need to do is we need to use the longer version, and all we're going to simply do is drop these in. And then screw them in. Don't go OTT in terms of obviously tightening them. Number 1, don't want to bust the radiator, and number 2, remember, this is not going to attach it to the case. We've still got 12 other screws, or 10 or 12 other screws, depending on how many you want to actually put in, with washers to attach it to the case afterwards. So follow step 1. Do the same for the number 2 and number 3, and then I'll see you in a second. All good. Right. Now we have all our connections made successfully. What we need to do now is we need to install the motherboard into the case. And also once that's done and that's secure, because this is most important, we can go ahead and attach the radiator in the correct position. So what we can do now, guys, is we can go ahead and open the box that came with the Lian Li case, and we can extract the screws in order to secure our motherboard down. So what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to put this motherboard into the case on the standoffs and locate and position the radiator. We can start putting some wires out the way, and it gives us a little bit more room, okay? So what we've got here, guys, is we've got our 24-pin pump header, and we've got our CPU fan header. What we need to do is we need to attach this onto the CPU header on our motherboard, and then this goes into our commander core, which will be basically cable thread through the case into the back. All right. And our CPU header goes on to our CPU header, which is located on our motherboard, which is just up here. all right? Just make sure it's orientated the right way, and then slot the grooves into the CPU header on the motherboard. Right, now what we can do, guys, is we can unhook these cables here, or we can get them through the grommets on the case, and then we can secure the radiator. And remember, we've actually put these as intakes into the case. All right. Right, guys, what I'm doing now is, as you can see here, I've just removed one of the back panels off of where I'm going to locate the radiator. So very simply, just pull the two little clips and then they slide off and you can be easily removed. Do the same for all of them. If not, we're not going to get any air intake, so they need to be removed. Our radiator can then be positioned, but what I want to do is, as you can see here, I've pulled through two of these cables already, but I wanted to see if I could route the cables actually through the bracket rather than having the cables all on show. Don't think that's going to be a possibility. Or is it? Could possibly. I think so. I think that should be okay. Should be okay like that. So what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to take the smaller screws, which I'll show you in a second, and the washers. So the smaller screws and the washers, and we're going to put the washer on the screw, and we're going to secure the first couple of screws into the back of the radiator. So small screw and washer. And we're just going to populate all of the holes in the back of the radiator to secure it correctly. Do that for all the screws. Again, don't massively over tighten it, there's no need to. Right, guys, they're all now nicely installed, so the radiator is fully secure, and what you'll see is we've got two cables per fan, and as we said before, one's an RGB header and one's a PWM header. The RGB headers and fan headers need to go into the commander core that was supplied with the Corsair cooler. We're not going to do any cable management at this moment in time. We're going to get the motherboard fully seated and secured. I've only got one screw in there at the minute, so we'll go ahead and we will secure that down first. All right. So what we want to do now, guys, is we want to go to the hardware bag that came with the motherboard, and we want to basically take out the correct screws to secure the motherboard to the case. Okay. So guys, we're going to go ahead and install the motherboard. Please make sure that you are using the correct screw. You should be using this screw here, not this screw here. Okay. It's the one that's got a nice little head on the actual screw. This one's more flat, and this one's got a head which will hold the motherboard down securely. Okay, so take the sufficient amount of screws and make sure that each one is obviously screwed down correctly. And again, guys, with when you're doing this, it does not need to be very, very tight. Just finger tight until you feel it where it's actually caught and it's not going to be too much. The worst thing in the world you could do is over tighten it and potentially injure your board or snap your board or something like that. Okay, and also make sure that you have securely filled every single hole as well. Okay, right then, guys, now that we've got those 8 or 9 screws secured the motherboard down, we've temporarily pushed some of the cables through to make sure that they're not on show. The next step would be to start looking at your front panel connectors and making sure that when we're routing the cables, they're actually able to fit into the case. Right, fantastic guys. So the motherboard's now secure. We've got a couple of options now. We can either look at putting our front panel connectors like HDD audio and the power switches, etc., and connecting those, or we can actually attach the rest of the fans in the case. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to route some of the cables and just look at how we're going to manage them and actually connect the ones that we can connect, just so when we come to put the power supply in, it's not going to cause any issues with the routing of those cables. All right, so just bear with me a couple of minutes, we'll do that, and we'll crack on to the next step. So guys, what we've got here, we've got our USB 3 at the bottom here, which simply goes into this socket here. We can put that one in. Keep everything as nice, clean and tidy as possible. We've got our USB-C, which is here, or USB 3.2, which is here. Now this only goes on one way, guys, so just be careful when you're doing it. I'm doing it wrong-handed as well, which is clearly the wrong way. There we go, that's that one in. We'll tidy these cables up, make sure that they're all done properly as and when we get a little bit more room. We've got our audio, which is here. And again, this one is at the bottom down here. So don't be scared, just make sure it's on correctly. I'll just show you actually. So when you're attaching these HD audio ones, you'll see here that there is a missing pin. All you've got to do is match that with the headers on the motherboard and you should be absolutely fine, okay? So we'll get that one on. And then this is the bit I think most people, in fact, we need to route this, the other side of that cable. Else it's going to drive me crazy. It's already going to drive me crazy because it's going halfway across the motherboard. And I don't like that at all. We may have a look if there's an alternate route for that. I don't think there is, but I'll have a look at cleaning it up as much as possible afterwards. So this is the bit that most people struggle with. And the easiest thing I would say, guys, is consult your manual that comes with your motherboard, okay? So for me, I always think the easiest one is the power switch, okay? So if you can get that one on, that's the easiest one, okay? So the easiest way is you're looking at these connections down here. There is a little manual down here as well, okay? So on the top, you've got your power button, which is there. Below that, you've got your reset switch, which goes below it. Which is there. Then you've got your HDD light, which is these two here. And then, there we go. I couldn't see what I was doing. And then you've got your power LED light positive, which is this side. Oh, right pin, Gareth. There we go. And then you have your power LED negative, which just slots nicely into that gap there, like that. Make sure that they're all secure. And again, we'll look at the cables afterwards, but it looks like we're not going to be able to do a huge amount with these, but we'll try as best as we can. So there we are, guys. I've just rerouted this HD audio cable through a non-grommet hole down the bottom. I just think it looks a little bit better. Cable's not running halfway across the motherboard. And for me, I think it looks much, much better. So as you can see, guys, I have cable managed the majority of the cables at the back except for the RGB and PWM fans cables for the AIO. So I've got, these are for the hard drives and storage. This is for the AIO, and basically I've just got a SATA cable for power for the front LED lights. So I've just wanted to obviously get rid of that rat's nest. Down here we have the USB 3.0 cable, second cable that we won't be using for the 2 USBs at the front. 4 is enough here, and on the back of the motherboard there's what, 4, 6, there's 8 on the back of the motherboard. So I won't be using half of them anyway, but I just wanted to let you know that the majority of it is done. So I think the next step, what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to introduce the power supply. We're going to get that mounted sufficiently. We're going to run the 24 pin. We're going to run the 4 and the 8 pin power connectors. We're going to connect up the hard drive bay with power and also with SATA cables to the motherboard. And we'll power this little RGB controller down here as well. Once that's done, we'll have a look at the commander core, which is here. Now, just be aware, if you are going to purchase this all-in-one cooler, you will be able to control 6 fans, RGB fans. So this commander core comes with 6 fan head splitters, or fan heads, shall I say, and 6 RGB headers as well. It does also come with the 24 pin and it also comes with a temperature input as well. So I will not be able to use this to control all 10 fans as well as the RGB as well. So luckily enough, I have ordered a Commander Pro which comes tomorrow. So we'll get as far as we can this evening and then we'll hook up the rest tomorrow. So guys, it's pretty self-explanatory really with this Commander Pro. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 24 pin from the pump and we're going to plug that into the end of the controller. Now this only goes in one way, so just be careful when you are getting it in there that you are putting it in the correct way as well. That's connected. We then have SATA power here, and we also have a USB 2 connection which needs to go to the motherboard, which is here. But one side is for fans and the other side is for RGB. Now, when you obtain this cooler, it's clearly labelled which ones are the... Oh, we've got fireworks going off. I don't know why. On the 20th of November we've got fireworks, but we've got fireworks, so apologies for that. So what we'll do is we'll hook up these for the time being and then we'll see how far we can get. All right, so one thing to bear in mind is obviously they are labeled 1, 2, 3. Okay, so make sure that when you are plugging them into the controller, you are plugging them into the right connections. Okay, so PWM1, we can put that into here. That's number 1. And then we can do the same thing with RGB 1. Okay? And then all we're going to do is we're going to work down RGB number 2 and PWM number 2. In RGB we trust you. That's number 2. And then number 3 and number 4, 5 and number 6. 5 and last one. Right. So essentially that's it for the all-in-one cooler. All we've got to do now is give it power for the pump and plug in the USB onto the motherboard. And then we can actually figure out how on earth we are going to put, or where we're going to put all these cables, and the best place to position this so that it's not going to interfere with anything else. Once we've done this, we'll crack on with regards to putting in the power supply, and we'll look at routing those cables, giving all the SATA power to all the components, and making sure that we've got all the cables run where we need them. All right. So on this particular motherboard, there is two USB 2 ports down at the bottom. Again, just look for the connections, and what we are going to do is we're going to put it in this one here. There we go. Right. That means also we've got enough room for our, again, is that going to do my head in, or is it going to be better from running it underneath? It may be better running it underneath. We've got a secondary USB 2.0 here, and what that's going to allow us to do is put in our Commander Pro and basically tie everything together. We're going to grab the 24 pin for the main power supply, and we're going to grab a couple of 8 pin PCIe connectors for the graphics card, and we'll get those ones in. I'll do some more cable management. As I've already said, we can't run the additional fans due to the fact that we haven't got enough connections without the Commander Pro. So what I feel like I'm going to do is, rather than putting in all the other 7 fans, we'll wait until tomorrow to do that. We'll make sure that we've got the system up and running until tomorrow, when we can install the other 7 fans, Commander Pro, and we can get it all synced up via iQue. So here we are, guys. We have the PSU. So just so you're aware, we've got a 24 pin for our main power to the board, which is the biggest pin that you can find. It can't really go wrong. It only goes in one spot. So that's our 24 pin. Next to that, on the power supply, you also have an 8 pin for the CPU power, and you can also have a 4 pin for the CPU power as well. So I'm going to quickly grab the cable for that one. You also then have 2 8 pins for the latest graphics cards. Now, what I would say is the very, very latest graphics cards, some of them require 3 8-pin connectors, and all you've got to do then is grab another 8 pin and plug it in the PCIe slot on the back of the PSU. Very, very self-explanatory, guys. All I would say to you is, I'll take this one out and show you that on the back of the cables themselves, I don't know whether you can see that, but it says PSU. So you plug this one into your power supply, and on the back of the other side, it says PCIe. So you can plug that one directly into one of your components or hardware, okay? Very easy, just line it up, and then, so it says, there we go, and then plug it in, all right? And all we're going to do, guys, is this is an 8-pin, but it's a 2-4-pin splitter here. So we'll only plug one of these into the motherboard. All right. The power supply obviously has a fan on it, guys. You don't want it up directly against a non-airflow piece of the case. So you want to make sure it's orientated in a way in which it can breathe. Okay. Even though Seasonic give 10-year lifespans with these power supplies, you'll quickly find that this doesn't last 10 years, okay? So when we're putting it in, we want to be putting it into the case orientated in a way in which it's going to be able to breathe, okay? And we've just put that there and it can't fit. I hate RGB. Hate RGB. Bloody RGB. Right, we're in. Let's see if we can move this back down. Get it off the back of that motherboard. There we go. Right. Thank God for that. I thought we was going to have a mare. So all we've got to do, guys, is mount the power supply utilising the 4 holes. well, 2 at the bottom, 2 at the top. Give me 2 ticks, I'll be back with you. There we go. That's all done. Right. Now we have to deal with the rat's nest yet again. So remember, we've got SATA power for our hard drive here. We've got SATA power for our Commander core. And we've also got SATA power here for the front of the case lighting as well. So those 3 need to be plugged into obviously our SATA cable, which is this one here. We've got 1, 2, 3, we've got 4 connections on this SATA cable here. We'll do that one last. The first cable I always like to run is the 24 pin. Number 1, just to make sure it's out of the way. And number 2, it's primarily the thickest cable and it's hardest to obviously route anywhere. So I like to get that one done first. The next one we're going to run, guys, is the CPU power, which is the 8 pin plus the 4 pin, okay? So we'll put these 2 to one side, keep them out the way. CPU power and CPU power, right. Again, try and keep these cables, guys, as nice and routed and clean as possible. That way, it means it's going to be a little bit easier when we come to tidy them up at the end. Right, how are we going to get you up there, beauty? Can I come through here? Yeah. All right, that's that one. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Yes, there we go. Right, so we've got those 2 through. What I can tell you is it ain't looking pretty back here. It's not looking pretty. Right, and the last 2, guys, are for the graphics card. Now, you can do this through any of the grommets. A lot of people bring them through the sides. You can bring them through the bottom down here. It's totally up to yourselves. Me personally, I think I'm going to route them, I think, underneath. I think that looks okay. Is it going to be better without the other one? Remember, it's going to be all the way up there, isn't it? Yeah, we'll bring it out the other one. We'll do the other one. Right, so that's 1. Right, that's 2. If it comes through, there we go. Right, so we have our cables for our graphics card. All right, everything looks fandabby-dozy. Right, let's connect the SATA power and then we can look at putting the graphics card in, and we're near enough there due to the fact that we're not putting in the additional fans at this moment in time. So let's connect the power. Let's put the graphics card in and let's try this. It's just got significantly heavier. Cables behind here, not the prettiest. It's a good job we've got a massive shroud to cover them all up, because it ain't pretty. She ain't pretty. Right, we've got one Molex, definitely don't want Molex. 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right, we're there. I'm not too worried about this mess back here due to the fact I've still got another 7 fans, Commander Pro, USB 2 to install. So hopefully, you can't see, but hopefully what I can do is I can put the other Commander Pro here and we can put the shroud on and it covers all this mess so that we're not inundated with cables, because at the minute it looks horrendous. But what I don't want to do is go through and cable manage it all due to the fact that I'm still going to have another 20 wires to look at in the morning when the Commander Pro comes. Right, so let's take a look at the front. So I'm guessing this one looks much better. Again, PCIe cables here. I can't see what I'm doing. But what we need to do is we need to attach our 8-pin for power. Oh, bloody power. There we go. That's our 8-pin power connected, twisted. It's connected, but we're twisted. Right, is that any better? No, that's disgusting. Right, is that any better? Yes, that's better. Right, we've now got our 4-pin. Which doesn't want to go in. There we go. Right, there we go. Oh, let's see if we can just move these cables. There we go. Right. Whew. So we're looking, I think, let's just tie that one back up. We're near enough there, guys. We're near enough there. Again, as I said, we'll do some final touches. We'll do some final touches tomorrow when we come to finish it off. But to my eyes, that don't look too bad. I'm quite happy with that. Depending on how these ML120 fans actually look and perform, I might switch them out for 3 more QL120s just to keep everything looking okay. If not, I might, depending on, again, depending on what the thermals are like, I might put the 3 of those fans there, the MLs, down at the bottom so I can synchronize the other 7. Not decided yet, but let's have a look how it looks first. So let's get the graphics card, let's get that installed. Remember, you've got 2 slots. The days of SLI have really gone with the 30 series coming out, or 3000 series GPUs coming out. Only the 3090 has the capability of SLI, and anyone that can afford to basically buy 2 3090s definitely won't be watching my channel. So remember, you need to populate it in the top slot. Please make sure you put it in the top slot. It's the much better, and that's the one where it should go. Just before we install the graphics card, guys, one thing that I forgot to do, just make sure that you peel off any stickers that are on your motherboard, such as these ones here. Ooh, nice peel. I think there's another one here. There is. Nice. So I think that's it. We'll leave the AIO one on until last. I'm not too fussed about that one. So let's get the graphics card in and let's see if this thing posts. So guys, graphics card of choice, or not our choice, but due to the fact that nobody can buy any 3080s or 3090s, is the popular 2080 Ti, OC edition, Strix. And what we need to do to install this is make sure a couple of things. Number one, this is a 2-slot card, so we need to remove 2 of these little panels at the back here. We also need to make sure that our GPU socket is open, or PCIe socket is open. First things first, thumb screws. Easiest way to make sure is, put it the right way, is just to line it up like this. And we know then which ones that we need to undo, which is these 2 here. Oh my God, they're tight. I thought, I'm not going to drop one. I did. And when you pressing it in, guys, you'll hear a click anyway. There we go. That's it. So when you press that in, guys, just press it firmly in. You'll hear a slight click and it should firmly be in position. Just give it a slight wobble. As long as the mechanism that's holding it in doesn't move or reopen, it's seated correctly. Okay. Replace the 2 thumb screws, which you've took out. Like that. And then what we need to do is we need to connect the power to the graphics card. And put the second one on as well. There we go. Right. And that's it, guys. Fairly basic, in all honesty. Computers nowadays are a little bit like Meccano or Lego Meccano. They are very straightforward. It's a lot of click and play, if you like. To be honest, the hardest bit is managing the cables. Especially, it's not so bad in a case where you've not got 10 fans. If you've got a big PSU shroud or something like that, you can just wob them all in the bottom. It's not too much of an issue. But when you're looking at the aesthetics of it and wanting to make sure it looks as nice as possible, then obviously it plays a big factor. Now, in this case, at this moment in time, the 2 things that we're missing is the 3080, and we're also missing the custom extension sleeves as well for the cables. So those red and black cables are going to play a massive part, not only in the significant changes to how it looks, but also for me, it will give me a bit more length in terms of the cables as well, because at the minute I'm routing them a long way, and what I don't want to do is have the cables with that much tension on them. You always want just enough that they're not going to come out, but enough to obviously play with at the same time. So everything is there. The only things we haven't done is we haven't put in my old hard drives. Now, the reason why I've not put those hard drives in at the minute is because these have both got, or this one's got an operating system on, and what I don't want to do is load on the computer and then boot from this operating system. What I have got is, here we are, I've got a USB dongle there, which basically I'm going to put a fresh install of Windows, and then I'm going to migrate everything from, well, this drive in particularly onto a couple of the other ones and we're going to use the 2 terabyte one to store a couple of games on and stuff like that. Now, it's not going to perform fantastically well at this moment in time due to the fact that we've not got the other 7 fans in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put the side panels on or anything like that. So we're near enough there, guys, for the build so far today. We can't finish it off due to the Commander core not having enough connections to allow us to connect the other 7 fans, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load on Windows, and I'll test it out, see if everything's working and we hit the post screen. And if so, we'll wait for tomorrow, and yeah, we'll crack on and get everything synced up. Find a few more rat's nests, I'm sure, along the way. But yeah, appreciate your time, and I'll see you tomorrow. So welcome back, guys. It's been a couple of days due to the fact that Amazon decided they weren't going to deliver the Commander Pro until last night, which was a nightmare for me. But what it did give me a chance to do was load on Windows onto our boot drive, make sure that we hit the post screen, and there was no issues. All 32 gigs of RAM were obviously showing. We managed to upload Windows 10 Pro and get rid of that nasty activation setting at the bottom. Made sure all the fans and everything that we've currently installed are working. The GPU was obviously being shown as well, and we've got no issues whatsoever. I can tell you it loads from pressing the start button to actually in Windows takes around 4 to 5 seconds, which is insane. First things first, we're going to install 3 fans, which are the QL120s, and they're going to go in the bottom bay here. Very, very straightforward. There's 2 little two little screws at the bottom down here, and then there's 2 thumb clips, and then this whole bay will be taken out. We can install the 3 fans in the correct orientation, and we want them as an intake, pushing fresh air, cool air into the case, hopefully giving the GPU some nice cool air. And we'll also install the back or the rear one as an exhaust as well, and the 3 at the top as exhaust. Okay, so we're going to have 6 intake fans, 4 exhaust fans, creating positive pressure. Hopefully, when these glass side panels on, we won't be starving it or anything like that, and we'll test out the thermals to make sure everything's all right. So if you're enjoying the build so far, guys, leave a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments section below. And if you've not done so already, if you found any value in the video or anything like that, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out. Let's crack on. So as you can see here, guys, the bay is now out. Very, very straightforward in order to do. And like I said, just those 2 screws and these 2 thumb clips here, okay? So please make sure, I always find it's easier to orientate the bay in terms of the way that you took it out. Make sure that you've got your fans the right way and the cables are going the right way as well. There's nothing worse of installing the fans and you've put the bloody cables on this side, and then you need to do either a right rerouting of the cables, or, which the easiest thing would be to do is to take them back off and put them on the right way. So make sure that you're doing it step by step. You're taking your time. There's no rush. Get it right first time, and it's a lot easier. So let's have a look, guys, at what comes with this QL120 pack, 3 packs, or 3 pack of fans. We'll give it a quick open. So we've got our 3 120mm fans here. Let's just take one out. There we go. Right. Oh. Really pretty fans, guys. Really pretty fans. Now, one thing that I didn't 100% know was what colour the fans were going to come in the ML version, and they're obviously black. Now, I ordered 7 of these white QL120s. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll be installing these and then seeing how they look in terms of, obviously, with regards to the black ones as well. And if it looks bad, we will replace those black ML120s, which is situated on the AIO. Because I don't know how it's going to look at this moment in time, but it may not look the best. But what we can do is we can order another 3-pack of these QL120s. I know that they're not in stock until the 27th of November. They're very highly sought after, these particular fans. So again, like the MLs, they've got 2 cables that come off of it. A 4-pin PWM and then a 4-pin addressable RGB as well. So what we'll do, guys, is we'll get these installed onto the bay down here, and it follows the same premise as what we did with the radiators. Primarily, look at which way you want to obviously have the air. Now, obviously, we want it blowing air into the case, so we want to make sure that they're like this. We'll make sure that these are all secured down, and we'll get that installed first. That's number 1 done, guys. So there we are, guys. We've got our fans installed into our bracket here, and as I've said previously, we wanted to make sure all our cables were on this side because that's the side in which they're going to enter the case. We've got them as an intake, making sure that they're blowing air into the case as well. So very straightforward. We're just going to unclip these cables, push them through the side of the cable or route them through the side of the cable, and then clip this bracket back into place in the bottom of the case. And we'll worry about connecting them up afterwards, all right? Oh, good. Let's get these 2 little screws back in the bottom of the case here. Oh, good. Right. I do think we need to do a little bit of cable management with regards to these cables as well, which we will have a look at after we've got everything hooked up, we know it's working, etc, etc. But yeah, I think it's starting to look really, really nice. I'm not sure with regards to these black fans as well as white fans. I do think the white ones look much, much better. Maybe when I get the other 3 in at the top and the rear, it might be a nice little contrast. But again, once we've got it all synced up, obviously it's going to have a different lighting effect due to these are QLs and they are MLs. So it won't have the same effect. So we're moving ever closer, guys, to the finish line. We've got 4 more to put in. I'm just going to follow the same premise on the top of the case. We're going to get those 3 in, and then we'll do the single fan at the rear at last. The only thing we've got to do different with this set of 3 is we want these as exhausts, not intakes, okay? So when we're putting them in, make sure that you've got the orientation correct. Right, that's number 1. That's number 1 done. On to number 2 and number 3. And what I suggest you do, guys, is you actually label these cables as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just because when we come to connect it to our Commander Pro or we come to connect it to our lighting nodes, in order to make sure that we're making the most of any lighting effects from IQ, we need to make sure that we're plugging them in sync, okay? Because if you plug them into the lighting nodes or the Commander Pro out of sync, then they're not going to work correctly, all right? So I'm not going to label them, but what I am going to do is I'm just going to adequately space them so I know which cables go where. What I would say to you guys is the first time that you install these fans, the little plastic casings in which these screws actually screw into are really tight, really tight. So don't be worried, you're not going to do any damage or anything like that. They would be much easier the next time that you come to install them or take them out. Right, so we've got 1, 2, 3 at the bottom. We're going to have 4 at the rear, 5, 6 and 7 at top. So what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to install our last singular QL120, which is just here in the rear, and we will find a way to route that. Hopefully it won't leave too many cables trailing everywhere, but we'll get this one done following the same premise. This one's going to be an exhaust again, so make sure you've got it oriented the correct way. They're all in. Right, so they're all in. Thank God for that. 10 fans in the O11 XL Dynamic. So what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to hook up our lighting nodes, and that's going to be hooked up to our Commander Pro, and we'll talk you through it. So what we've got to do now, guys, is we have got to provide power to all of these different Commander Pros, Lighting Node Pros, and obviously that's going to be via SATA power. So what you need to do, guys, is you need to visit your PSU box. You need to obtain another SATA power connection, and what we need to do is we need to plug this into the back of our power supply so we can provide power to our lighting nodes and our Commander Pro. Right, so what we should have is these are the rear fan. This is the rear fan. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. So 7 in total, okay? We've not got to worry about the AIO because that's already hooked up to a Commander core and connected via USB 2 connection on the motherboard itself, okay? So obviously on these lighting node cores, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can only add up to 6 fans on each lighting node. That's the reason why we need an additional one, okay? Now, what I can do, if I really wanted to and didn't want to use an additional one of these, is I could just plug in the additional fan into there, and that would eliminate the need for this other lighting node Pro here. Now, the only difference being is I'm not sure whether you can connect 2 different types of fans to the same lighting to the same Commander core. So they've got ML120s, and obviously these are QL120s. So I'm not sure, and I don't want to run the risk of running all the cables and then figuring out that it don't work. So I think the easiest and simplest way is to utilize both of these lighting nodes that came with the QL120s. So all we're going to literally do is we need to figure out which way do we want to number the fans. Do we want it to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Or do we want it to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Okay. So me personally, I think that the easiest way to do it is going to be start at this top corner up here. So this is going to be number 1. So we need to grab the RGB that says number 1. If I can get it out of the fan, I've secured it in. And we're going to plug it into number 1. Just like that, okay? So that's number 1. We then need to do the same with number 2. Number 2. And the same with number 3. The same with number 4. And then the same with number 5. And the same with number 6. So we've got 6 fans now hooked up to this lighting node core here. So leave that one for a minute. What we're also going to do is we're going to connect into number 1 of the second lighting node core, the 7th fan. Okay. That's all our RGB connections made, no problems whatsoever. Okay. So let's just move these. Let's open our Commander Pro. And all we need to do is we need to provide SATA power to the Commander Pro and also attach it to our USB 2 header on our motherboard as well. Okay. But before we do that, let's just lie it down, move all this 3M tape. All right. So, first things first, okay? What we need to do is we need to attach power from the lighting nodes to the Commander Pro, okay? And I'll show you that in a second. So, lighting node number 1 needs to go into here. They only go in one way, guys, so just make sure that you've got them the correct way. Lighting node number 2. Right, so there's our lighting node 1 and 2 connected to our Commander Pro, okay? That's basically all of our RGB all connected. We've got the lighting node pros connected to the Commander Pro. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to provide power to both lighting node, Commander Pro and the other lighting node as well, okay? So, take our SATA power cable. We'll do our, let's say our Commander Pro first. That's number 1. In fact, let's try and get this as tidy as possible. So let's do this one first. Right, that's number 1. Let's do number 2. Oops. Come on, you bugger. There we go. Right, and finally our Commander Pro, which is number 3. Right, there we go. So, there's no way to do it, guys, where it's going to be aesthetically pleasing to look at. There's so many wires, it's unreal. We will, obviously, we've still got a shroud to put back. We've still got to mount this, and this into the back of the case. I'm not going to keep it like this, but just for demonstration purposes, I just wanted to show you where we're currently at. Okay, so do you know how I previously mentioned that the RGB needed to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they needed to be in order? Well, for the fans, i.e. the PWM headers, they do not. They can go into any one of these fans up here, okay? So, all I would suggest you do is, I'm going to do it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 anyway, but I'm just going to go into 1 up here. One, 2, 3, 4. There's so many wires. 5. 6. Right, so essentially, we've got power to both lighting nodes. We've got power to our Commander Pro, okay? But you'll find that you've got one fan here that's not got any power, okay? So what you can do is, where have I put it? You can either, two things. The first thing is you can provide power from this here, or if you wanted to control it via the Commander Pro, you can get a splitter cable. And I'm just trying to think, where have I put my splitter cables? So you can get a splitter cable as well, guys, okay? So you can use one of these. If not, you can just plug it directly into this Commander core, which is up here. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to literally plug it into our Commander core. So then I know it's got power. Right, look at the mess. It's absolutely atrocious. RGB, everybody said. Oh my God. Right, it's not that bad, guys. We've got 10 fans. Normally, if you've got 3, 4, 5, obviously there's going to be half as many cables, half as many lighting nodes, and much less clutter. So don't worry, it's not going to stay like this. I purely just did it just to show you the connection. So primarily all we are doing, okay, is we are running our lighting node cores to our Commander Pros via the USB 2 connections. We're connecting our lighting nodes and our Commander Pro with SATA power, and then we are connecting our Commander Pro via a USB 2 header on our motherboard, which we can control all the fans with, okay? And that will be through IQ using Corsair software, all right? Just remember that the PWM power does not need to go in sync 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but the RGB headers do, okay? Because if you're wanting to make sure that everything's all synced up, if you've got fan number 1 in slot number 3 and you're clicking on slot number 1 and it ain't doing nothing, well, that's the reason why, okay? So it's not mega complicated. The biggest problem and hassle is the amount of cables, okay? So not the best in terms of visual representation, but there is a couple of other links out there that if I'll put them in the description for a link to a video which explains it phenomenally well. It comes up with diagrams, and to be quite honest with you, it's very, very straightforward, okay? But essentially, all you've got to do is separate your cables, attach your lighting nodes to your Commander Pro, Pro to your motherboard header, and make sure that you've got in synchronization your RGB headers, and your PWMs can go wherever you can power them from, all right? So while you guys get rid of the headache of looking at me with all this mess here, I'll spend the next probably 30 minutes tidying all this up to the best that I can. And yeah, we are nearly there. So we'll put the case back together. We'll put the shroud at the back so we can kind of hide this from all planes of sight. And we'll turn it on and see where we're at. Right then, guys, we are nearly there. We're nearly there. So just to give you a bit of an eye of what we've done behind here. So it's still not the best cable management job I've ever done, but just please take into mind that there is so many SATA power connections, PWM headers, RGB headers, or cables, shall I say, with regards to this configuration. So don't hate me too much in the comments section. Obviously, this is near enough how I'm going to leave it, to be quite honest with you. There's just one other thing that we've got to do, or two other things we've got to do. Number one is to install the hard drive, which I'll do in a second. And then second of all, just put the glass panels back on and we'll fire it up, see if we've got some power. And if everything boots, we'll take it into the BIOS and just make sure that everything's all up and running and we've not messed any connections up or anything like that. So let's get this hard drive installed and I'll be back with you in a second. So pretty straightforward, guys. Because this case already comes with pre-wired drive bays in, all we've literally got to do is hook this into the drive bay, because I've already provided SATA power and a SATA cable to the motherboard as well, and that way we're all good. So as we said previously, you've got to undo this little catch, slide it to the left. Yeah, there we go. And then one of these drive bays can pull out, okay? And all we're literally going to do is you need to make sure at the back, let me just check. Right, so it needs to go in this way. So make sure that when we're putting it in, just line the holes up on the back. You won't be able to see that, but 4 holes on the back of the tray, and then just use the screws for the case to secure it. There we go. Hard drive fully installed, no issues, no problems. And then, like I said, what we're going to do is we're just going to push this into here. Don't fall out. We're going to push that into there. There we go, fully seated. And then we can slide this mechanism back across and just tighten the thumb screw. And that's it. Let's get this case, side panels, top panel put back on, and let's fire it up. So guys, all I would say to you is just make sure that you've got your filters in the correct place. You want them over your vents, obviously. They're magnetic, so just make sure that they're nice and firmly in position. Like so. And we'll put the back panel on first. So remember how we took it off? We just slid it in, yeah. That's that one. Oh God, this is heavy. And then, guys, we've got our front panel as well. But before we do that, make sure that you put your mesh filter on the top. Make sure that you are getting the, or keeping as much dust out of the system as possible. Oh, definitely feel the weight now. Right, there we go. Right, last but not least, we have got the top panel as well, guys, yeah? Secure the thumb screws at the back. Oh, this is heavy. Oh my God. Oh my Lord, that is heavy. So, last but not least, everyone's bit of ASMR, a little bit of peel. So let's be quiet and do this together. Ooh. I've gone and dropped a bollock, guys. I've not done the inside panel before I've put the glass panel on. So I'll quickly take the top off, take the inside off first, and then we'll do the outer last. Last but not least, so there you have it, guys. My main build so far. So just a couple of things to mention. Cable sleeves from or cable extensions from CableMod have still not arrived even in the last couple of days. We have had an update from Overclockers that we are no longer 1003rd in line for one of these 3080 Strix cards. We're now up to 842, which is brilliant. It's probably going to be another 6-7 weeks before we get our hands on one of those. So we're going to enjoy this for the time being with the 2080 Ti. Obviously, I know there's a 20 to 30% increase in terms of GPU performance when we get that upgrade. And like I said, for me, I think this looks stunning so far. What I'm going to do now is we're going to add some power. We're going to see what this RGB looks like straight away. Look at that rainbow goodness. I'm not actually turned it on, guys. This is the first time I've seen it. I mean, I'm looking in the viewfinder, so I'm not actually looking at it myself. But oh, that looks nice. Nice. Now, what I can see is obviously those three black fans stand out a little bit. I like it in one way because it's a little bit more contrast, black and white, but in the other way that, yeah, it's a little annoying due to the fan doesn't look, or the fans don't look like the other 7 fans. So they're there primarily for performance, due to obviously being attached to the radiator and provide adequate cooling for this 5950X. But I hope that you'll agree, it looks absolutely stunning. I've tried to do the best job I can with how many cables that we've actually got as well. So if you like the video, leave me a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, leave them down in the comments section. And this will be the first of a lot of builds on this channel, whether we are reviewing the latest hardware, whether we're doing some PC builds, whether we do build alongs, whether we do it live on YouTube. I'm not quite sure yet, but it's been an absolute pleasure. And like I said, if you've not done so already, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. And I hope you have a good day. Peace.